Hello YouTube and welcome to my channel, Steamy Jimmy, and today I'm going to explain how to play the game B-Daman Bakugaiden Victory no Michi. That's quite the mouthful there. So let's get started and jump right in here. So you start the game up and select the top option. This lets us start a new file. Breeze through the introduction to our first screen. Now there are 4 worlds in this game, with the first having 4 separate stages. The number of stages will increase by 1 for each world if you were curious. Select the stage and we're finally at our first menu. If it helps, try writing down these characters to help you remember them. I promise it does get easier to navigate this dialogue. Our first option up top is the World Select. Right now you don't need it, but in the future it will allow you to switch between worlds and access different stages when you want to. The second option is a database where you can view a list of enemies and cards, as well as editing our deck and party. We'll discuss this in a moment. The third option is a help menu filled with various topics. Given that it's all in Japanese, it's not of any use to us. The fourth option allows you to begin playing the stage, and lastly, the fifth option down below allows you to quit and exit the game to the title screen. Now let's discuss the second option in more detail. Take notes because this will be one of your most used functions in the game. Select it and you're treated to another menu. Option 1 is an enemy player database. This will display information about enemies and their transformations, with the same being true for the playable characters. Option 2 is the card database. This will explain the abilities of every card you possess, and it's hard to use without being able to read Japanese. I will explain what I have learned here though. The small window directly beneath the card is its name. This will help you when you want to add it to your deck. The number directly to the right of the name is your quantity. I'm not sure of the maximum quantity, but I have seen as high as 7 before. The large box that contains the quantity number also explains the ability of the card. I generally look for numbers in any English characters I can find. Generally, anything using an AP, SP, or HP is self-explanatory in that it affects that particular stat. Some cards will show a +1 or -1 in the explanation as well. Often that affects the number of attacks a character is allowed, so just keep that in mind. You'll have to experiment around, but I was able to complete the game on this knowledge alone. Moving on, let's go back to the menu before and select option 3. This menu allows you to edit your party. There are 5 possible characters, but only 3 can be allowed in the party at one time. Here's a chart I made that translates the names for you. Memorizing this chart will do a lot of wonders for you, especially when it comes to recognizing cards. Also, please note that there is no formation to your party. The characters being shown are in a triangle pattern for design only. It does not affect the gameplay having someone in front or back, to my knowledge anyway. Lastly, let's select option 4. Now this is the most important menu in the entire game, as it allows you to edit your deck. This game uses a card system in battle, so what you have equipped will make or break your ability to play this game. The window on the left is your current hand. You can move the cursor up and down to move across them individually, or use left and right to skip between entire pages. The ability will be written in the window at the bottom of the screen. Again, keep an eye out for any stats or anything legible to you like the characters' names. Pressing A will switch you to the menu on the right. What this is doing is, you have selected a card from your hand to replace with one from your inventory. This right-hand menu are all the cards you own, but are not currently being used in battle. Move around and select one to swap out. The fraction on the right-hand side is also important. The leftmost number tells you how many of that card are in your battle pile, and the rightmost number is the maximum number of that card that you own in general. You have to select a card that isn't already maxed out in order to be able to swap. When you select a card, the game will pause for a second and you will see the change reflected. Practice around with this and it gets a lot easier, I assure you. You will now notice that the right-hand window, your inventory, is still selected. Now that a swap has been made, you can continue editing, but in reverse order this time. Why the game does this, I'll never know. Select a card from your inventory, and the menu switches back to your battle pile on the left. Select a card you want to switch out, and you just made another successful switch. If this sounds too complicated, just press B and exit out of the menu and start over again. Now that we have a handle on the menus, let's begin the game. You'll see Bomberman appear on a strange grid of cards. This is the overworld for the stage. You are currently on your home base, and you can return here anytime to do any of the functions mid-stage. Point Bomberman in a direction and press A to flip that card over. The majority of cards do nothing. Basically, they are terrain cards and can instigate a random battle. What terrain you are standing on when a battle initiates can affect battle, but more on that later. Continue moving around and you will encounter several types of areas. There are towns, which will either feature a dialogue conversation amongst the party, villagers, or villains. It can also reveal a treasure chest. The chest will either contain keys or cards. Some cards feature gates, which can only be opened by either obtaining a key from a treasure chest or defeating a particular mini-boss. While traveling around, you will see already revealed areas. These are mini-boss areas where you must defeat a villain to continue. Each stage also contains a boss area, which must be cleared in order to clear the stage. Visually, it appears differently than the mini-boss cards. Also note that each world will feature entirely different looking cards for these overworlds. You can also find other home base cards where you can stop and edit your party and cards. These extra home bases usually have limited functions compared to the original. Now that we've covered all of that, let's discuss the actual battles themselves. When a battle initiates, the first screen will show who you're up against. Press A, you'll move to a screen where you must select your initial party member. Only one party member can be on screen at a time. Now we have the battle screen, which is filled with a lot of info. At the top of the screen we have the HP for both groups. It's displayed with numbers and also the orange bars next to them as well. The dots directly under the HP numbers are the number of party members. An X will appear in its place when a member is defeated. Moving to the lower windows, we have the character's name and their stats. AP is your attack points, and is basically how much damage you can do for that round. The multiplier next to it is how many times that round you can attack. SP is a bit unknown to me, but I believe it represents speed. Ideally, the more speed you have, the more likely you are to dodge an enemy's attack. I'm not 100% certain about this, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Next to the SP number is an element picture. Knowing the elements is crucial towards winning, as it can really tip the advantage during a battle. The stage will also feature an element, depending on what terrain card you landed on, but I do not know of its effect on the battle. It's important to note also that each of the 5 playable bombers have fixed elements to them. These elements can change during some of the later transformations, so be aware. The bottommost window features instructions and updates about what's going on during the battle. Now you may have noticed the attack and defense logos sliding across the top of the screen. In this game, the player and enemy each take turns in these modes. While I'm not 100% on what they do, I can say there are a few rules worth noting. Some cards can only be used during specific turns. For example, all transformations can only be used during your defensive turn. Each attack turn, you are given new cards for your hand, and you can only run away during a defensive turn. It's important to know these rules as well. The top choice is selecting your cards. You can have 6 cards in your hand at a time, and when you select one, a number will appear next to it. As far as I know, the order which you choose these cards has little effect on the game, but it does exist. The information window below will show your card's ability if you ever forget. Select your cards and then press B to move back. Option 2 allows you to swap out to a different party member. It will also show you their current HP, so that is helpful. Option 3 plays out the battle. During defensive mode, a 4th option will be available, which allows you to attempt to run from battle. And that's the gist of the game. Finishing a battle will sometimes unlock a new card for you. The game does not have an experience system, so the characters cannot be powered up outside of battle. It is entirely based on your deck and when you can use them in battle. One of the most crucial aspects of this game is knowing how to transform. I made it to the last boss of World 1 before the game became too difficult to progress without knowing this. Thankfully, it's a rather easy process when you know what cards to use. There are 2 types of cards a character can transform with. First, there are elemental specific ones. These can only be used to power up a particular character and will not work for others. It corresponds to the character's element, which is thankfully color-coded and easy to learn. The second type is an all-around card. These are the most valuable as you can use them with any character regardless of element. This chart will make things much easier for you to decipher, so make sure to put some of these in your deck right away. Later transformations can only be achieved by using the specific card for the specific transformation, with your party being required to be at a certain form in order for it to succeed. The flowcharts from this strategy guide will make it a lot easier to understand. Special thanks to Reiji for scanning and sharing these. Beware, because the enemies can also transform as well and give you a tough time in the process. we've discussed every aspect in the game you need to succeed. Now that you've mastered all of that and have finished the game, let me explain how to reach the true final boss. The first thing we need to do is collect egg cards. There are 7 egg cards that must be collected to advance. From what I've discovered, they appear in specific stages but randomly in the treasure chest. If you cannot read Japanese, you have to open these treasure chests and return to home base in order to check your card inventory and see if it's there. This process is extremely tedious, but is necessary in order to advance. Once you have all 7, go to stage 3-1. There should be a town card that is 3 moves away from your starting position. This will appear differently each time you play, as this area is randomly generated. Once there, enter the following passwords that are associated with each egg card. If you're ever confused about which one you are missing, go to the password screen and enter the codes. You can figure out which stages you need to go to from there. Also note that you must possess these egg cards in order to advance. Simply entering the passwords alone will not work. Once all the passwords are entered, proceed to stage 4-7 and complete the stage as usual. You must battle through all the bosses once more, including the original final boss. Another tedious assignment, I know. After that, you will be allowed to access the farthest areas of the stage where you can face off against the true final boss. Hopefully this explanation was detailed enough that you can now enjoy this game without having to know Japanese. Until someone decides to translate the game itself, this may be the best guide we have for now. Feel free to leave a comment with any further information. Thanks for watching and stay steamy my friends, and we'll be back soon.